Wink, wink.
Geese are stealing toiletries to piss off their neighbors in Untitled Goose Game. Is honking in harmony more helpful for hoarding? The game has a very colorful, minimalist art style where nothing blends into the background. It's the perfect style for the type of game it is, where you need to be able to recognize and distinguish between objects. The isometric view gives you a good sense of your surroundings, even if we did wish it would let you zoom out a bit more. The animations are very smooth, and these are probably the most realistic goose animations you'll see in a video game.
Untitled Goose Game is a stealth puzzle game where you play as a goose with a to-do list. Each area provides new tasks that vary in complexity between simple theft to tricking kids into buying back their own toys. You can tackle challenges in any order, but some are more difficult depending on how much chaos you cause when completing others. Some tasks are vague, and several require multiple steps, testing your skills in stealth and distraction. There's an odd contradiction in Untitled Goose Game, as it can be fun and sometimes necessary to cause mayhem. But if you do it too much or in the wrong way, you could be left with a more difficult time completing your task, or waiting for someone else to clean up your mess before you're able to progress.
Without much guidance in the beginning, it's possible to misplace items that you will need in the future. The solutions to some of the puzzles can be a bit obtuse, and are made more time-consuming when they rely on the NPCs being in a certain place or position. On the plus side, areas aren't sprawling, and the NPCs have short memories, so it's not unbearably tedious to find items, or for NPCs to step back into their patterns. After doing most things on a list, one more item will be added, and the task will open up a path to the next area. Once you've completed the game, you can play through it one more time with a new, more challenging to-do list. The levels are the same in single player and co-op, just with a second visually distinct goose in the mix. The game suffers from a tug-of-war problem in co-op, where both players are on the same screen and cannot travel far apart before the game stops them. You might think you can easily coordinate to have one player distract NPCs while the other player sneaks away with an item, but the tug-of-war makes this option more difficult. With enough honking, it was still possible to pull off some daring heists.
It's obvious at some points that the game wasn't intended for co-op. The way to get into one of the areas only allows one goose at a time, and it technically separates the co-op players more than the game usually allows. Ultimately, it does work, but because of the knowledge that the co-op geese can't be separated, the solution is unintuitive in a game with puzzles that already stretch the bounds of your intuition. It also feels a little buggy, as the game tries to compensate for the limitations that co-op creates in this particular situation. Other than that, co-op works surprisingly well. As you can't simply split responsibilities and tackle things independently, the game requires some coordination. This is a plus, as one of the game's major strengths is the humor that organically emerges from inadvertently terrorizing the villagers as a pair of geese. Requiring players to work together means that neither player will miss out on any of the action, and there's something inherently enjoyable about sharing the experience with another player.
We're not going to lie and say this game has a compelling narrative, but there is something of an arc to it that ties the goose's journey up nicely. Don't go into this game expecting a story, but know that it is ultimately satisfying. We didn't experience any crashes or game-breaking glitches. There were a couple of quirks like an NPC's animation stopping when you're circling around them, or an NPC's seemingly losing their minds when overwhelmed with the mess you made, but they usually snap out of it when you distract them with something else.
Unlike some more frantically paced stealth games, the tension of Untitled Goose Game is balanced nicely by the idyllic and peaceful neighborhood atmosphere. The dynamic piano-based soundtrack that ramps up only when things get chaotic both heightens the excitement at the right time while keeping the game lighthearted. The trade-offs in gameplay when playing with a second player might require you to change your strategy, but the game is still fun, and the humorous experience might be even better with another player to share the laughs. If you're interested in a short journey with a couple of goofy geese, this is one we would recommend.